It was liquid love, and the weight of sin just lifted off of me. God has given you the grace to bring them into this world.
God's telling me to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
We have no money. I don't care. I'm doing it anyway.
Sounds like God, doesn't it?
All right. So Leslie Drake, lead pastor, apparently just found out at Lovelace Center for the last 15 years. You know Kris quite well for a number of years now. And
Yes.
actually, believe it or not, you were the okay that she got for me. I don't know if you told him that.
No, I don't think I've even told you that.
Yeah. So that'll be that's a funny story.
Yeah, because well, I can go ahead and say it real quick.
Yeah.
Because you always told me when I was there, you need to quit focusing on boys. You need to stop. You need to focus on yourself. And
that's right.
So I wasn't really ready to be with anybody when I left the Love Lady. I told God, I said, I'm not gonna be with another man until I know that you sent him to me. Well, then me and him started hanging out, and he took me to Love Lady, and we happened to walk up there, and you prayed over us. And when you prayed over us, you asked God to bless this relationship and all that. And I was like, me and him weren't even dating yet. And I said to him, I said, I think that's what I needed. I said, because I hadn't even decided if I wanted to date him yet. And then when you did that prayer, I was like, that was my go ahead. That was my okay. Like,
wow,
go ahead and be with him. And so then I decided to date him and got engaged 6 months later.
How long have you guys been together now?
We've been married, it'll be 5 years in January. And we dated for about a year before we got married.
Man, that blesses my soul. God, that's so good.
Pretty much since I left Love Lady.
Well, that's awesome. When we're pursuing the Lord, and the person that that God usually links together with us is pursuing the Lord. And so you have this kind of this triangle effect where, you're both kind of linear together on the base, but you're both looking up. And, that's it makes the relationship so much more rich, because you're not trying to find salvation inside of each other, but you're finding salvation in the one who only brings it, right? And it really creates a great foundation, because, if we're both looking up, I tell people, this is my, marriage counseling 101. Just grab your partner's hand and spend 2 minutes, just 2 minutes of a time of prayer that you pray for them earnestly, and do it vice versa. Ultimately, what happens is arguments dissipate, because the real judge, the one who really knows our hearts, reveals it. And so, you know what? I've never really won an argument when God got involved. It was always me getting in alignment with him, and always made me align myself with my wife in the right way. And so, I don't know, it's kind of like, think about sports. If these professional, collegiate, whatever, are out there playing sports and they did not have a referee, it wouldn't last. It would it would go crazy in just moments. Even with professional athletes, we all need a referee, and there's nothing greater than having the Lord in our relationship. He really neutralizes, he brings things to the place they need to be. But I know you guys didn't ask me to come on here for marriage counseling, but for me to realize that I'm a part of this dynamic duo that's making a difference, man, I am just honored to be on the show.
Well, I don't know how much of it. We're working on it. We're working on it. Trying to grow, trying to bring more people in. It's actually going pretty well. I'm
Yeah.
happy with it. But
we've done had
That's awesome.
we've had Holly Martin, we've had Miss Melinda, we've had Mark Wadley, and then now you, and then I think on your other podcast we've had
Melinda.
we've had
Mark.
Melinda and Mark.
Yeah,
And
from
then-
awesome,
Love
man.
Lady.
They're awesome.
And then we also
Mark
have
is awesome, man.
in a
He's
couple
there
of
for
weeks.
years.
In a couple of weeks, we've got another girl. Well, actually, Colette Carroll. Do you remember her? Coco.
I probably would know if I saw her face. I'm better
Yeah.
with faces than names.
She's supposed to be on in a couple of days. I want to say it's Thursday. She's supposed to be on. And then there's another lady that's a graduate named Ariel. She's supposed to be on it within the next month or so. So
Well,
we're
that's
getting lots
amazing.
of,
You know, obviously, yeah, like obviously being someone who's graduated Lovelady Center, kind of my heart, my philosophy, like my approach to recovery is not your typical language or lingo of some approaches to recovery. Not to overlook any one thing, because I do believe it takes a village to bring people out and bring them through to the other side to really have healthy recovery. And so a lot of people wonder, you didn't have a particular addiction. Well, and so how can you relate? And the one thing obviously that I bring to the table is just my mom and my dad both were in active addiction and were hippies in the 60s, and so I'm a product of that. And so there was a lot of childhood trauma that I experienced from their dysfunction. And and even later in life, my dad, he had about a 10-year window where he was sober and he raised me as a single parent. But when I went to college, my dad went right back into a full-blown alcoholic addiction. And so in that journey with me, now just kind of starting to live for Jesus, not a pastor yet, but just starting my discipleship, learning more about the Lord. My dad was out there, just needing help. And so I was on a journey to try to find, the help that he needed. So, going to different rehabs, reaching out to him when he was living under a bridge, when he had lost everything. And then on the other side, my mother, she left when I was 7 years old. So I didn't have a really strong relationship with my mom my whole life. And then in the early, I think it was like 2007, my mom reached out to me and asked if I could find her a treatment center because she had been struggling with a meth addiction for almost 30 years. And so that put me on a journey to find a women's treatment center. And I knew Melinda McGahee because we had in the past went to the same church. And so I had heard of the Lovelady Center. And so I called and reached out to her, and my mom was able to get into the Lovelady Center. And, that's kind of the backdrop of things that, I walked through. I mean, obviously, every single person has an addiction to sin. It just takes on different types of sin. And Christ is the only one who can bring you out of that. But me having, just a love for my mom and dad, I wanted to find something that could help them out. And so it put me on a journey looking for some place that could help us out.
I wasn't really honestly sure exactly, what to talk about with you, aside from, kind of the, I guess you could say, obvious things of, working in a recovery center. But I think
Yeah.
that something you said really kind of piqued my interest, which is the fact that your parents had their own
Yeah.
addiction issues. Um, so I
It
guess
was tough.
the first thing I'd like to ask about is from the perspective of a child with parents that are in addiction, what is that like? I guess because I don't
Well,
have
well,
that.
I'll tell you this. Yeah. Well, Dylan, they just came in to do special training for all of our staff here at the Love Lady Center, and the focus was childhood trauma and
Mm,
kind of the statistics of people that experience childhood trauma. And they had a grading system, and basically 0 being the least amount of trauma and 10 being the most trauma. And I scored a 9 in that test. So I was a high
wow.
risk child
The
because of
what?
all the trauma that I experienced: verbal trauma, sexual trauma, abandonment issues, violence. I saw my mother, beaten in front of me. My dad broke her ribs and her nose, and left her in a pool of blood right in front of me. I remember being in Spider-Man PJs. I was 6 years old, and I saw all this kind of violence. And on top of that, what some of the conditions that they saw in me was that I had night terrors, and I wet the bed until I was 7 years old. And I had fits of rage. Sometimes they said when I didn't get my way, I would hold my breath until I pass out. It was just, there was a lot of turmoil on the inside of me. And not to get, you know, overly graphic, but I just saw a lot of things that a child should not see. And I remember talking to my aunt that actually came to the house to babysit me, and she was a teenager, and I was like 3 and 4 years old. And she said that sometimes when she would come over, there would be so much traffic coming in and out of the house that things got a little bit dangerous. And a few times she came over, uh, she was actually being hit on as a young teenager in an environment where there was a lot of drug activity and sexual activity going on. To take a step further back, I learned this later in life, is that when my dad came home from the Vietnam War, he had a younger brother that was in active addiction, was a heroin addict, and they decided to go into a brothel business. And so they had a house for prostitutes so that they could actually create revenue and run a business. And my mom on the other side was actually ran away from home as a young teenager, got into a marriage that was real bad. When she was 16 years old, she had her first kid, and so she had a failed marriage and a young 2-year old, and had started dabbling with addiction. And so she left my older sister with her mom and dad, and actually started going into the streets and started into prostitution. That's how my mom and my dad met. And accidentally I was a product of that environment. And so, I mean, it was a lot worse than I probably realized, but the environment was toxic for the first 6, 7 years of my life until my dad went to prison. So
Wow.
I
yeah,
never knew any of that.
it was a rough childhood on the front side of things. And you don't realize what you're called to, that a lot of things in your past, your pain and your struggles of your past is preparing you for your for your future. And so, you know, I think I shared a little bit. My grandfather was a big influencer in my life, and he had a near death experience and actually saw Jesus. And he came and told my mom and my dad, mom and me, because my dad was still in prison, about Jesus, who's real. And he just became a stable person that loved God. And as my journey went down through there for about 10 more years, I find myself starting to, uh, dabble with sin. Alcohol was probably my DOC, but it was more of a playful thing than it was a full blown addiction, if you know what I mean. I was still in the early stages, about 3 years in, and my main addiction probably was just looking for love in all the wrong places. So I had a lot of relationships with women because I was looking to trying to find that love, because my mom had been absent from my life since the age of 7 years old. But in the middle of that kind of chaos, the Lord intercepted and introduced Himself to me. And January 4th of 1992, I met the Lord for myself, and it really just brought me out of a ring and a circle of addiction, because a lot of my friends were now moving into heavier drugs and into more things that a couple of my inner circle friends went to prison. A couple of my inner circle friends died of overdoses, and a couple of my friends, you know, a few years later got out of the cycle that they were in. And so, I'm just, by the grace of God, I could have been just like anyone that I get to see at the Love Lady Center every day. I could have easily went down that road. Everything was already in place for me to live in a life of addiction and brokenness. But by the grace of God, I had that grandfather that I told you about that was praying for me. And the day that I gave my heart to Jesus, I went to see him, and I started, the 12 steps of AA are really biblical and very, very profound. It's just that the day that I gave my life to Jesus, I realized that I was powerless over the sin that had trapped me, and I saw myself on a on a how do you say it? I was on a train that was going to crash. It was a train wreck about to happen. I just saw it. My mom and dad had 7 failed marriages, active addiction, both been to prison. And I was going down that road, and I wanted off of the train. I didn't know how to get off. And then God introduced Himself, and I experienced the power of God to save. And immediately, the night before this happened, I had really wronged a woman that I went out with, and just was a cheap thrill. And God told me to go make amends with that person. So I drove to her house after having this encounter, made amends with her, and found myself in church. I found a group of people to do life with. I went to my first meeting and made a profession of faith. And then right after church, I went to see my grandfather, and I found my sponsor. And so, like, it took me about 6 hours to start stepping. And if you really encounter God, the steps are going to work and they're going to happen. But the reality is, you can't take steps until God shows up, because He's the one who takes the first step. He loves us while we're in our sin. And the only way we can get out of it is be rescued. And by the grace of God, man, I'm so thankful. I get to share that story with thousands of people on a daily, and I get to see people recover and begin walking the walk that it takes to really get to live a different life,
Yeah. Going back a little bit, what was you said, that He introduced Himself. What What was that like? What happened? You know, kind of, I guess the way I picture it
with my
is,
born again.
yeah, when you encountered God and it was like, oh, what was that first
Wow. So
time?
I'm coming in. So I'm trying to get home before the sun comes up. I don't know if you've ever been on that time clock before, but I'd already been
Yeah.
out, bar hopping, and and it's closing in on about 4:35 in the morning. And so I'm trying to get home so I can get in bed and go to sleep. I'm 20 years old, and I had a answering machine. I don't know if you know what those are, but I
Oh
had a
yeah.
Yeah.
landline and this little machine that you would press because people left you messages through the night. I had a beeper, but this was back in the day, so I had 7 messages from a girl that I had been out with earlier that night and just kind of dumped her as I was going from one place to another. And these voice messages was, where are you? Why did you leave me? Can you come back and get me? And the messages progressed to, I can't believe you left me here, da 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 da. While these voice messages were playing one after the other, initially I'm thinking, does this young lady not understand that this is how the game is played? We use people, we mistreat people, we don't think twice about it. When you're just chasing and the thrill and you're just trying to find love, there's real no loyalty in that dark life. And so conviction, like something like just came in the room, and the light turned on, and I had this moment of sobriety. And all I can tell you was what sobriety looked like for me was a panoramic view of illumination of where I was, where I had been, and where I was going. And I
Mm.
saw behind me, I could see just the continual cycle of broken relationships and disloyalty and these addictions. And then I saw it around me. I had, I was a college dropout now. I didn't have a real job. I had inherited a house when I was 18 years old. And so I had like 3 of my party buddies living in the house with me that was paying the power bill and the light bill and making sure the refrigerator had plenty of refreshments in it. And so I was just getting by. And, our house was kind of a central location for all of this activity. And I saw that I was not satisfied. I was seeing this around me, and it wasn't fulfilling. It felt empty and dirty on the inside. And then looking ahead, I was like, first, I'm so broken that I don't know how to trust anybody, and I don't know how to love anybody. I'm probably going to have kids out of wedlock. I'm probably going to have a full blown addiction, and I'm probably just going to be a deadbeat. And in that moment, I was too young to have the capacity to even think like that. When you're a kid, you don't understand that. But when the light of God came in, which I didn't realize it at the moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm a wreck. So I realized, I think in order to be saved, you really got to be convinced that you're lost. You gotta know that you're powerless and you are a mess and you need help. And in that moment, I felt desperate. And so I just said, God, if you're real and if you can love something like this, let me know. Because, I want to get off this train. If not, turn the lights off, because I don't want to. I'd rather be blind to it than for me to be awakened to it, if that makes sense. But this just me cracking the door of my heart and saying, God, can you love someone like me? His love came in like a river, Dillon. It came in so fast and so furious, man. The love just, it was liquid love. And the weight of sin just lifted off of me. And man, dude, like my life began to change. because I had someone saving me from myself. And I, the rest has been history, just learning more about the love of God that I discovered in Jesus.
That's have you ever heard of a guy named Todd White
Oh yeah,
before? Your
absolutely.
your story and his are very similar.
I know. I just got to meet him just about 3 months ago.
You got to meet
And
him?
Oh wow.
yeah, he
That
came
is
to
not fair.
Birmingham, and so we were there with him. He had a conference, and he's raw, he's real.
Yeah.
I love him. And his spiritual father is I think Don Moeller. I think it could be wrong, but he's somebody that I'm hoping to get to meet too one
Yeah.
day. He comes down. He's spoken at a few rehabs here in the general area around Birmingham, and so I'm
Mhm.
trying to connect with him as well.
That's
We're hoping to get Todd on the show one day.
one day when we
Well,
get
that's
big
Someday.
awesome.
enough. When
Yeah.
we get
We
big enough.
almost got him here to the Lovelady Center as well. It just couldn't fit in his schedule, but he's coming
Yeah.
back in later in the fall of this year, and
Yeah.
we're supposed to get him over here to the Lovelady Center. So yeah,
That's amazing. But yeah, your story and his are pretty similar.
yeah,
Especially how God, like you say, introduced himself, being, yours was that kind of like moment of I don't know where else to go kind of thing, and his was,
yeah.
you know, I
He was
just
a
got
wreck.
shot yet nothing hit me. How's
Yeah,
that possible?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but what was the transition like? So you have the moment
yeah,
where God's like, hey, here's where you are, here's where
yeah,
I'm at, care to join me?
yeah.
And you
So
you you open that door.
I just went to, I just got in my car and I went to first a church that went to school there in like seventh grade, and I hadn't been in church in 10 years, and so I knew they had a church there, so I just kind of showed up and waited till they gave an altar call. I was just so under conviction and just wanted to make a public declaration. And then after that service, like I told you, my grandfather, I knew he was a man of God. I just didn't want to go around him when I was living in sin, but
Yeah.
I knew that I needed to go see him. And so he became my spiritual mentor. And really, for the next 15 years, uh, I lived in a really under his discipleship. I moved into a neighborhood next to him, and he lived in a trailer park. And so I bought a trailer that sat right beside his trailer, and so he poured into my life, and I'm so grateful that I had a spiritual father like my grandfather.
So you said that he had been praying for you, that kind of whole
Yeah,
leading up to that. Um, that's something else that I have noticed is very common among people. So I was raised in the church. I was in church from for I was born on December 22nd, and I was at church for the Christmas Eve service that same year. So I've been in church for 32 years, and I'm 32
yeah,
years old. I haven't been able to attend, like, in person, because I typically work on Sundays.
yeah,
But what I have noticed is, for people who were not raised in the church necessarily, or just gotten away from it, whichever one, and then they come back around to it. I wouldn't say all of them, but more or less all of them have all said that same thing. There was my mom or my grandfather or my aunt or
yeah,
somebody who was in the back that made that person feel loved, but
yeah.
they were praying for him every night.
Well, that's like what JJ
Amen.
talked about. We had his friend JJ on the show, what was it, like a month ago? And he was going through a lot of that stuff. Like he was completely just not wanting to have anything to do with God. He was even praying to Satan. Why he was what was it? He was praying to Satan to like tell him all of these girls' weaknesses so that he could get with these girls and just completely break them down and
Yeah.
destroy them. And he wanted to do the Navy. What was it? The Navy
SEALs.
Yeah, he
Navy
wanted to do the
SEALs.
SEALs, but his mom, or no, they told him he needed to do college or something like that. I can't remember what happened, but he ended up going to Bible college, and he was still, getting high and stuff, and he would have these encounters with God. And it was always on a
Mm.
Friday at a very specific time on a Friday night. And then when he finally, caved and turned to God, he talked to his sister. And those exact times when he was having those encounters with God, his sister and her friends they went to the Bible college too. And they would do things on Friday nights, I guess. And so her and her
Wow.
friends would be praying over her brother every Friday night. I want to say it was like 10 o'clock. It was
Wow.
a very specific time. Every Friday night they would pray for her, and he would have an encounter with God right when they were praying with him.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's eventually what got him to turn his life around, wasn't it?
It is. It
All
is.
those
And
encounters.
then in the moment for me when I was suicidal and I was just fed up with everything, that was actually this last episode. We talk about that. But when I was in that moment and I made that decision and I was in the act of pulling the trigger, not like thinking about it. It was aimed and I was applying pressure to the trigger. I don't remember anything after that, but I remember sitting on the couch and my dad knocking on the door because I had texted my mom my address. They didn't know where I lived. And come to find out, in that moment, the worship leader for the church I grew up in, Miss Sharon, she had a vision of me laying down. She didn't know exactly where, but laying down, and a demon like descending above me, coming down, to me, but coming in between me and that demon was an angel. And she said that she was on her way to something. She called them and said, I can't make it. She turned around, she called my mom and said, where's Dillon and what's wrong? She said, I don't know, but he sent me his address. He's just having a rough time. My mom didn't know what was going on either. And she said, I'm heading over there. And come to find out, in that moment of when I was doing that, that moment that I can't remember was when she saw that vision and started praying for me.
Wow.
And I don't have
Wow.
any doubt that that's what saved my life, because that it should have gone off. Pressure, there's not a whole lot of play in the trigger to begin with, really. And I
Yeah.
was already squeezing, and then I don't remember anything for a little bit. So anyway, I kind of got off on my own trail there, but
No, it's amazing
Well,
how.
and that's what I told him before. I said, you hear people talk about, demons possessing people. I said, but what if an angel had possessed you and you just don't remember it? It
Yeah.
possessed you and it got you up out of that situation and sat you down, and then you finally came to. Because I don't know if angels can do that or not, but
Well, I will say this. I think the
dang.
ministry of intercession and prayer is has in our culture has lost its value in
mm-hmm.
our modern times. Where I really believe that intercession and prayer is such a powerful tool and a lifeline. And if we would pray more, we would see more things happen and shift. And I tell people this all the time, that I tell people that um, when your kids, you can't tuck your kids in at night, whether you've lost custody or they're grown or whatever. I asked them, I said, do you love your kids? And obviously moms will say, yeah. And then I'll say, well, do you pray for your kids? And 9 times out of 10, they say that they do. Now I take it a step further and I said, well, how many other people do you think take time to pray for your kids? Some people, nonchalant. Oh, there's a lot of people praying for your kids. I was like, for real? Like, you really think that people take time? You think aunts and uncles and coaches and you think all these other people are burdened in their heart to pray? You think the pastor specifically prays for your kid? And it kind of called it into question. I was like, look, I was like, God has, given you the grace to bring them into this world. And one of the greatest gifts that you can give them is to cover them in prayer every single day. And you're already designed to do that, and it will make all the difference in the world. So a lot of the girls here, that's one of the things that try to I try to do in order for them to realize the value of that particular assignment,
Yeah,
because it'll make a difference.
Yeah. Me and
my grandfather said this, and I'll let you talk. He said, I'd rather teach one person how to pray than 10 people how to preach, because the one person that can pray will do more for the kingdom of God than the 10 that preach.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I didn't know what, to be honest with you, Dillon, when I was young, I was like, nah, man, I want to preach, And as I've gotten older, I'm realizing, man, I need to learn how to pray more than,
Mhm. Yeah, and prayer's hard. Not because it's actually hard to do. It's hard for a couple reasons. One is the way I see it anyway, the way I hear people talk about it, is they feel like there's this certain way you're supposed to do it, and if you don't do it that way, then it doesn't work, so they don't do it.
Yeah.
That's one. Another one would be I'm too busy.
Yeah.
A third one is again, this most common ones that I hear is I'm not where I'm supposed to be with God, I don't think. And right. I don't think that they say more along the lines of, I don't think he really wants to hear from me. But really what they mean is, I don't feel I'm worthy to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All of which are false, but still extremely common beliefs for people, right, because that they feel like there's this certain way you're supposed to preach. But even in the Bible, even the Bible, the only time I believe Jesus gives instructions on prayer is when he gives the Lord's Prayer, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
But I tell people, I'm like, prayer, it's just a conversation. It's not this, here, let me get on my knees and clasp my hands beside the bed and pray like I'm reading out of the King James Bible. It's just a conversation. You're just talking to him. You can pray while you're driving down the road. You can pray while you're getting groceries. You can pray when you're in the shower. You can pray even while you're on the phone having a talk with somebody else. Like, he's always there. He's always listening, and he's always speaking. And one of his names is the Word. Like, that somebody, I don't remember who, but a pastor or a minister of some sort a while back said something I was listening to, and I love the way they said it. They said, he's the Word. He doesn't know how to shut up. All you've got to do is learn how to listen. He's always talking.
Yeah, that's good.
But I don't really know what the point of all of that I was saying is, but I just felt like I needed to say it.
Well, I think it's so, thank you for sharing that, because I feel like you're addressing a lot of the issues that, we really, I'm where I'm at today because somebody prayed for me. Right. And we want to make a difference in other people's lives. And I think one of the first things that we need to do, just like, Kris, that you were sharing about the person that came to the Lord on college campus there, somebody stopped and they started praying and it made a difference. And so that encourages me, to learn. My grandfather, like I say, he was a praying machine. He had he would pray sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
I was like, man, I can't do all that, Paul. But I started out, and I tell people it's really just like you said, it's a conversation. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to help a lot of people out there. If you really want to reach people that are in active addiction, start praying for them every day, and let God get involved, let Him move mountains.
Sorry. You mind if I tell this one story before I forget?
I've been trying to. Okay.
Well,
I've been thinking about this. I don't want to forget what I was going to say neither.
Okay. Well, it won't take but a second.
Okay.
So do you know the rock band Korn?
Yes.
By chance? So the guitarist of that band, Brian Welsh, is Christian and all that. He knows Todd White real well. The story behind in that band is one of the members, I can't remember who it was, but one of the members' dads, I believe, was a real strong Christian and was praying for him, for all of them. And he also, he had cancer. He had something happen. Anyway, he wasn't doing well, and he told Brian, who had already become a Christian at this point. He told Brian that he was dying. He was on his deathbed, and they were all there because they all loved him, and so they were all there visiting him. And he told Brian, he said, "I've been praying for my son," and I don't remember what the other band member was, singer, drummer, or what, but he said, "I've been praying for him," and he said, "When I die, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to talk to, I don't know if it said Jesus or God or what, but he said, I'm going to tell him that he needs to get a hold of my son." He passed away. He passed away. And then I want to say it was just a couple weeks later, that other band member called Brian and was like, "Dude, I don't know what just happened, but I just experienced a feeling I have never had in my life. I felt so light. I didn't feel like I had any worries. I didn't feel any depression. I don't know what this, like, it felt like the greatest hug I've ever had in my life. And I don't know what just happened, and I'm freaking out." And Brian said, "Oh, I know what that was." And he said, "Well, good. What is it?" He goes, "You just met God, man."
Wow.
And he became a Christian. After that guy's son that he said that about. So it was just a cool.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
I don't think that he's in the band now. He might still be. I don't know. I saw a meme about him one time that said Korn, basically a Christian band now, because a lot of the members are still Christians or now Christians, which is hilarious. And
cornflakes, right?
Yeah, right. And Brian and Todd, at least back then, I don't know about now, but they used to go out at the concerts before the show would start and everybody's lined up to get in. They would go out and be like, "All right, who needs prayer?" And people are like, "Is that Brian?" Wow. "I need prayer," because they just wanted to meet Brian, "I need prayer." Right. He's like, "Great. What do you need prayer for?" "I don't know." He's like, "I'll just pray for you anyway." And so he's like, that's cool. What were you going to say?
I talked about this with Melinda one of the days, but I don't know if you remember this or not. But it was when I was still at Lovelady. It was back in 2019, something like that. No, 20, something like that. I can't remember when it was. But I had come in there and I was telling you about like all these different feelings that I was having. Like it was a bunch of depression, just like a lot of things that I was dealing with. And you had told me that all of the things that I was feeling sounds like I was being oppressed. And then you explained to me, what is it? Infestation, oppression, and then possession.
Yeah.
Well, that weekend, I talked to you on like a Wednesday or a Thursday. And that weekend, I ran off. I was supposed to have gone to be with family, but I ran off to be with one of the boys that you at the time were telling me to stay away from. And I relapsed that weekend. And it was one of those things where it was like everything that I could have, like any lie that I could have told, God was knocking it down. Like, and I mean, and I was very confident in it. I was telling my mom, I said, you can call up there. They're not allowed to tell you, blah, blah, blah. So I fully was convinced I was going to get away with it. And Holly Martin calls me in her office because Mama had actually called up there. And she goes through my phone, finds all of the stuff. Like, I thought I had deleted everything because I was still high when I got back to the center up into this morning. And I had thought I deleted everything. And Holly found one specific message that got me not only in trouble for doing drugs, but also fornication that you're not supposed to be doing while you're there. So she finds all of that stuff. She goes, well, you're sitting here saying this. Why does this say this makes me feel blah, blah, blah is blah. I want a blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, yeah, that. So then.
So you deleted everything except what you needed to delete.
Yeah, I deleted everything except for the thing telling what I had done. And
wow. So, but funny how God works.
Yeah. So I got put back in, I got sent upstairs and I was still bent on wine. Like, I would not admit, because I had passed my drug test. I had drank a bunch of whatever it is that flushes it out of your system. And that's what Holly was asking. Like, how did you, pass your drug test if you did this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I wouldn't admit it. And then that was back when people were taking what they were calling gas station dope at the time.
Yeah.
And Melinda and Brenda were starting to really, crack down about that kind of stuff. Like, if you got caught doing it, you were automatically getting kicked out. Well, I didn't know that they were cracking down that hard about it yet. So I tell Holly, I was like, oh no, it was gas station dope. And she's like, Christina, if that's what you did, you're not going to be able to stay here. You're going to have to go home. I was like, oh, okay. So I told her what it was. I was mad, got put back in restoration. I was just mad about all the things. Well, then we had church. It was either that Sunday night or that Wednesday night. I want to say maybe it was that Wednesday night. And it was a group of people that came there, how they would have the little guest speakers and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a group of women. And I was sitting there in the little chairs that are directly in front of the stage that's right up under all the stuff. I was sitting right there looking at these women, and I was telling God, I said, you know what? I'm done doing this. I was like, I will do whatever you tell me to do from this point on, just wanting to give it and give it my all. And then this woman starts walking up to me, and I literally looked up. I was like, okay, guess we're doing this. So she calls me up there, and I already knew what she was going to do because people were already falling out. So she was explaining to me, I'm going to touch you and you're going to feel this pressure and you're probably going to fall. And I'm just like, yeah, I know, whatever. So she does it. And then I got knocked down, and they start putting their hands on me and praying. And I instantly start, like, I don't want to say convulsing, but I was like moving around, and I was throwing up. And I was throwing up like black stuff.
Yeah.
And all these girls, like all the women, one of my friends, she came up behind me. She was like, they were essentially trying to hold me down because I was like trying to fight it, trying to get up. And the lady was telling one of my friends, she goes, she's getting scared. Just hold her hand. Just hold her hand. Let her know she's okay. And I just start out, like, it's all a blur, but I just remember just vomiting projectile everywhere, just black goop, brown goop. And Sandra, I don't know if you remember Sandra Lee. She's standing up there. She's like, are you okay? What's happening? And then she was the only one besides everybody that was praying over me. She's the only one just watching me like, what's happening? But after that, I just felt such a release.
Yeah.
And granted, I know you said earlier about, graduating. I don't know if you know this. I never graduated a Love Lady. I just left against everything. So, I did good for a little bit, and then I just kept having, just on and off, just these spurts of anger, just getting frustrated. And because when they wanted, I don't know why they did it. I guess maybe they were trying to get me to like refocus. Right. But it was my second time going through restoration, and they started me back at phase 2 when I got out. First time they put me at the end of phase 3. This time they put me at phase 2. So, and when I relapsed, I was 2 weeks away from graduating. So they put me back in phase 2. They put me in a 4-person room. I had never been in a 4-person room. I was always in a 2-person. Yeah, I was mad. I was just like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I completely left. And when I think I stayed maybe a couple more months, and I kept telling my mom, I was like, I'm not gonna stay here. I'm leaving. I'm not doing this anymore, because I was worried at the time that my ex-husband, because he finally found out that I relapsed. The first time, he thought that I got in trouble because it was faith-based and you can get in trouble for lesbian activity. So we lied to him and told him that's what it was the first time. He never knew that I relapsed. We were like, oh no, I just got in trouble for lesbian activity, you know? And so he was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So this time my whole family was mad at me. So they told the truth. And so he was mad, you know, custody. He was talking about taking custody, just all these things. So I kept telling my mom, I was like, I need to come home. Like, I feel like I'm going to lose my daughter. I got to get home. And nobody wanted me to come home. And one day, I just decided to get somebody from back home to come and pick me up. And I relapsed that night. And then my mom came and picked me up, because like I went and hid from the guy that picked me up because he was wanting to come back and see me or whatever. And I got scared. So I ran upstairs to another hotel room and I hung out there until my mom got me. And then I laid in bed that night and I was praying because my heart like was just going 90 to nothing. I couldn't get it to slow down. I couldn't get any sleep. And I told God, I said, if you let me live and you help this go away, I will never touch that stuff again. And then she took me to church the next morning. This guy was there. I hadn't seen him since middle school. He's there. And he had already texted me that morning. He just don't remember it for some reason. But he had already texted me that morning. Well, then he ends up seeing me sitting in the back. And he he starts texting me, hey, this might be kind of weird, but was that you? You know, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't see it till that afternoon. And lo and behold, God had actually spoken to him. When was it, a week before? Yeah, a week before, telling him she's coming back. And he didn't know who it was because he was like, I don't want anybody back. So when he sees me, God tells him, I told you she was coming back. And yeah, it was crazy. And I don't know what got me on this little thing. I kind of went completely off track of what I was originally saying. But I really feel it. That kind of goes back to what I told you in the beginning when it was like I know that I know that I know thing, because all of it like lined up. You saying that, automatically thinking that we were together when you're always telling me to stay away from boys. Yeah. And then him telling me what God preparing him, letting him know I was coming back. And then it was just like, I've had things happen since I've gotten sober, but I haven't had any full blown desires to use. Right. I've been sober since January 2020. So essentially the entire time we've been together. Like, I got home, all that happened. And that was one of the things that he told me. He said that if I ever were to slip up, that we would be done, we would be over. And I think that's one of the things that's held me accountable. But it was crazy, just the way that God just like brought all of it together. Then I slowly started getting my oldest daughter back. And then, Satan wanted to throw some curveballs in there. We've had like 7 miscarriages, but I've still been able to stay sober through it.
7?
Yeah.
7, yeah.
So y'all haven't had a kid together yet?
No, we have one. We have one.
Okay.
We had 2 miscarriages, then we had her, then we had 5 more after her.
Okay. Her name is because she's the one that lived. She's the one that made it.
Amen.
And God actually told me, we went to an Elevation concert, and it was during one of the songs. It was either The Blessing or Miracles, or maybe it was like they played back to back. I can't remember. But I remember it was one of those two songs, and I was crying, and I heard something in me, and I didn't realize till months later that it was God, because I've never really heard God talk. But I heard something in me saying, "You're gonna get your baby." Well, then found out, like, because we had just decided we were going to quit trying, like, all because outside of miscarriages we also couldn't get pregnant, and we had just decided we were going to stop trying. And then I had that happen, and it turns out when I found out I was pregnant, it was like little over a month later. So I was either already pregnant or just got pregnant right after God said that to me. So her middle name is Greek for promised by God.
That's
so she's
beautiful.
our miracle promised by God.
Amen. That's so good.
Yeah.
But going back a little bit to the I guess the after you and God got introduced and all of that, how hard was that transition after? Like, was it instantly changed, or was it like a road of working on things and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a journey. I was 20 years old, so I was so young, still. And so, but I mean, I was committed. I was engaged. I got connected, got involved in church, going to church 3 times a week, and then surrounded myself with some new friends. Had that real conversation with those that I used to get high with and stuff, that, hey, I'm heading in a new direction, and had to part ways with some of those guys, but did it in a loving way, not a condescending way. I was just like, I've got, the first thing was my house. I had so much activity going on in my house. At first, I thought I was going to lead everybody to the Lord, but that wasn't happening then. And so I just had to change the setting and kind of shut down all the activity that was going on, and just started a new thing. Eventually moved and got around more godly people. Um, but it was a journey. My wife came into my life probably uh, about 2 years after my conversion. I met her and we became friends. And about another year and a half later, we finally went on a first date, got married. And I was 25 when I got married. So
His
it was
wife is
about 5 years.
amazing.
Yeah, and she was a ground for me. And so even out of our almost 30 years of marriage, there have been so many things of growth. They're just growing in Christ and growing in maturity as a lot of different dimensions and levels that I didn't know and still don't know all of them as I'm continuing to grow um and develop as a person that loves God and loves others. It's love, takes time to learn how to love yourself and to love people the way God wants you to. So it's
Yeah.
always, yeah, it wasn't snapping your fingers. I've made some, mistakes along the way, but the grace of God has always been there to, kind of pick me back up. And I know that I'm not on a perfection or performance track. I'm on a relationship that requires repentance, but I get back up and say, God, I need you. Like I don't want to grieve the Holy Spirit. I don't want to live in unconfessed sin. I want to I want to be genuine and truthful. I don't want to be fake. I don't want to, look at things or say things or do things behind closed doors that I would be ashamed of. I want to be genuine, on the stage and behind the scenes. I want to be the same person. So that's just been my heart's desire.
I so I know some people. The reason I asked that was because I do know people who had that God moment, and then they never, it was instantaneous change,
Yeah.
But that's not been my, again, I was raised in the church, and maybe I'm just different, but that hasn't been my experience. My experience has been like, strapping on a rucksack and trying to hike Mount Everest is what it feels like, like,
Yeah. Well,
do I ever achieve what I think I should? And the answer is probably no. But, um,
well, the thing is, they're just different levels of surrender, different dimensions of surrender, and normal surrender usually takes place after human endeavor and self effort, and performance has come to its fruition, and you really have to bow your knee again to Calvary and rely on the Lord's strength instead of your own. And so for that process, because really usually sometimes what happens is when you get some good days of recovery behind you and you're kind of moving forward, it's easy to kind of start looking at it as something you're doing instead of the Lord working in you. And pride enters into your heart, my heart, and then you just find yourself sabotaging your journey, because you've let instead of letting Jesus be Lord, you allow yourself to get back in the driver's seat. So it's always been a journey. The greatest prayer that you can really pray is a 3-word prayer, and it's Lord help me. That's the best prayer I've ever prayed. And mean it, like believe that he can, and really know that you can't do it without him. And once you come to that, there's a river of life that flows, and a strength that comes from above that empowers you to walk in the right way. And it's like the wind in your sails. I love that. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Man, thank you, Lord, for helping me, because I was out here struggling on my own. And I think that's what the difference between Christ's righteousness and self-righteousness. And so, yeah, man, to God be the glory, man. I've been here now, almost, I'm going into my 15th year. And, if there was a DOC for me, it would have been probably sexual sins. And so here I am now, just empowering and loving women into their worth and their value. And, full circle, God redeemed me from the hurt and the pain and the loss and the brokenness that I experienced through my mom and through some relationships that, hurt me early on, and turned that around for me to be a wounded healer, and for me to love people well and see them in the light that God sees them. So, man, I'm just, I couldn't have wrote this story, to do what I get to do, but I'm so grateful and honored that God would use someone like me, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the that's what he likes
It's the
to do,
gospel.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The people
It really
that
is.
think that they don't deserve it, he's like, good. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Or what I
Good
want.
resume.
Yeah. What were you wanting to ask?
I was just gonna say how it.
Microphone's in front of you.
So how did you end up working at Love Lady? I don't remember.
Yeah, my mom came to, was reaching out for help. And I reached out to Melinda and got my mom in the program. It was like 2006, 2007. And so I became aware of the Love Lady Center. Also, Melinda, she knew at that time that I was in ministry. And so she started calling me from time to time to be a guest speaker, to come do a morning devotion or a church service. For a couple of years, I was kind of on a list of people that would come maybe once a year. And so one particular occasion, my wife and I went on a fast, and we had prayed. It was a 21-day fast, and just heard the Lord saying that we were about to step into full-time ministry. And up to that point, I was bivocational. I had a paint company, and, did church work, but nothing substantial. I was youth pastor, associate pastor, traveling evangelist, just did different things, but nothing full-time, nothing that would pay the bills, but something that I love to do. And I was at one particular night, I spoke at the Lovelady Center, and Miss Brenda, she must have been upstairs, heard me. And so as I'm walking out of the Lovelady Center, she says, who are you? And what do you do? And me and my wife were actually believing God for full-time ministry. And Miss Brenda, just out of the blue, she said, "Hey, I really like what you said today. They tell me that I need a pastor here at the Lovelady Center. Would you consider coming to the Lovelady Center and being our pastor?" That was the resume. That was the invitation. That was it. I'm walking like out the door, and Miss Brenda offered that. And so my wife and I prayed into it, and we just felt, yeah, this is exactly where we need to be. And so we started serving at the Lovelady Center and became the first, called pastor to sit in at the Lovelady Center. Up to that point, there had been guest pastors. There had been a few pastors on staff that pastored other churches, but nobody had ever been the pastor of the Lovelady Center. And Miss Brenda and Melinda were just doing everything. They were executive director, they were the finance officer, they were the CEO, they were the children's director. They were doing a little bit of everything, right? And so little by little, they started raising people up and appointing them to different posts as the Lovelady Center grew. And so, obviously now this place has doubled in size since I've been here, and is the largest faith-based transitional facility in the country.
Wow. I didn't know it was the biggest in the country.
I didn't know that neither. I knew it was big.
Yeah, I knew it was
big. But I didn't know it was
that
big.
It's the biggest in the country, yeah.
Wow.
Pretty awesome to say you're a part of something like that too.
Yeah, well, something with a crazy story too. How they did it. It was just like,
amazing.
God's telling me to do it, I'm going to do it. Yeah. We have no money. I don't care. I'm doing it anyway.
that's kind of sounds like God, doesn't it? It just bigger than ourselves.
I know. I told him, I said, I wish that we would have been doing this already before Miss Brenda passed, because she would have been amazing. Yeah.
I never got to meet Miss Brenda. Yeah. I've met Melinda. I've met her in person once, and I've met her on, doing these kind of things twice now, but I never got to meet Miss Brenda. She had already.
Listen, I would love for you guys. Where are y'all located? What town?
Oh, we're just up in just right north of y'all.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love for us to get together. I'd love to bring you down and let you see our studio at BGTV. Because we have so many people that are engaged, involved, and just check it out, man. It might be something that could help resonate with what you guys are doing, what you want to do. We're believing that God's, it's the language, man. This is where the language people speak now. Is communication through podcasting. And so what you guys are doing is on the front line, and it's what's needed, and it's where people are, they're tuning into this to hear people talk about these subjects. So love for you to come down. We'll give you the grand tour, let you show you what we're doing, but just go online and check it out. Because there's probably other people that would, even some of your guests that maybe want to start doing something, and maybe you guys can join forces and make what you're doing bigger,
No, that's yes, we'd love to. And then B, that's one reason why we wanted to start this, is because I kept telling Kris, I'm like, listen, life really, really sucks sometimes, but if you let God handle it, he'll make good come from it. And because she was hesitant about telling her story and about that kind of stuff, right? I said, what's going to make what you went through worth it is by helping somebody who's going through it, and you're able to help them because with your story, because of what you went through. That's what makes it, what's going to make it worth it. And when God uses what you went through to save someone from potential death, from maybe a lifetime of addiction and stuff, and help save that person, suddenly you realize everything I went through was worth it.
Yeah.
Because that person is now safe.
Well, see, and like the reason I was hesitant too is because, part of my story is, I think, what I've told you before about the boyfriend that had, offed himself and all of that.
Yeah.
And I was worried about talking about that on here. But, even now outside of this, where I work at, now I work at the Women and Children's Hospital. So, with the losses that we've had, I come across women that on certain floors that are going to have babies that were born, passed away, or I come across women that are having ectopic pregnancies or miscarriages, or babies that were born addicted to drugs. And like, because I've been around all of that, I can actually treat them better than how most other people would, because other people are going to have their opinions about the women born, that have their babies born addicted to drugs. They're going to have their attitudes and their opinions. And, I used to be one of those people, but now I understand how it all works, how it's better for the baby if you continue doing, like I know all of those things now. So that's what even my directors at work have told me, is me going through that kind of stuff and having my past addictions, I can give love and affection to these people instead of, just the judgment that they get from other people. And then they have me do sitting sometimes. And when you sit, it's usually with a person that's on suicide watch. So I'm even able to help those kind of people. Like there was a little girl I sat with not too long ago, and I can't go into detail because HIPAA and stuff, but it was like, I felt like I was able to make a difference in her by talking to her about her experiences and my experiences. And I feel like all the things that I've gone through, it's kind of God has put me to where I need to be now to help not only with this podcast, but even at the hospital, these people that are going through these similar things.
Yeah. So that's why we started this and what we really want. And we've even had, I don't remember who it was. I don't even know if you do. And it really doesn't matter name wise. I don't want to say their name anyway on here in case they don't want me to. But somebody commented on one of the YouTube shorts that I put up.
Yeah.
And it was with the Mark episode when Mark was on here. And the lady commented and said, I feel like this video is speaking directly to me. Basically, thank you to us, which I don't know why you do that, but and thank Jesus, thank you, God, for speaking to me and helping me. And I was like, I'm a perfectionist. For instance, the fact that I adjusted the table that everything is mounted to, so you can see the wood here and you can see the wall on the other side, and it's not centered up the way that I like it, because normally it's all like you can't see all that, so it looks a lot better. But I moved the table and I didn't check it with her camera, so that's irritating me because it doesn't look the way that I like. I don't like the lighting isn't good enough. I'm a perfectionist. I want it to be perfect. I want it to sound perfect. I want it to look like we have a whole crew, even though it's just me. She's here when we record, but I set everything up and I do all that. But when I saw that, and likes, more likes, more followers, more views. I want all that. Always researching, trying to find out ways to get more engagement. And when I saw that comment, and then she has had another one of her friends who's, I think the one's going to be a guest, right?
No, it was a different one.
Okay. That commented on something and was saying similar stuff.
She didn't know about my story and my past, and said that she was sitting there crying, listening to it. Said, I had no idea that you'd been through all that. I'm so glad that y'all are doing this.
But that when I saw that and then heard that one from her, I was like, that just makes it all worth it. The frustration that I've had, like
it does. Well, I'll tell
all
you
the
what,
research, all the work, like that Yeah, I need to pursue that stuff because you want to have quality, you want to have a big reach because you want to help a lot of people and blah blah blah.
Right.
But really what really matters is the fact that this, as small as we are and as imperfect as we are right now and brand new, God used us to help somebody.
Amen.
And that's what matters. And I don't know, it just made me proud, and it also made me embarrassed all at the same time, because I was proud that it reached somebody and and it helped them, and God used us. And then it also made me feel embarrassed because I put so much pressure on myself and on this to do better. So that's like, this is a weird dichotomy of emotions.
Yeah. Well, Dillon, I will say this, thank you for having me today. It was truly a blessing to come. And one of the mottos that we have with what we're doing over at BGTV is just to try to get 1% better every time. Just try to get 1% instead of, there's so much that you probably want to do, but if you can just get a little bit better every week, every month, it just be progressive with it. That's all. And that way it's not pressure, and you just kind of live with the imperfections as you're going along the way to get better. And so anyway, but man, I've enjoyed it. I know we've probably I don't know if we've broke the record for the length of our show, or we're going to split it into two, but man, I'm glad I've been able to be with you this afternoon.
Oh no, we're running about average. But yeah, no, thank you for joining us and taking the time. And we definitely will come down there. I don't know when.
Yeah, we just gotta, with the way that my work schedule is, we'll have to get it
soon
figured out. Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah.
Not Jesus is soon though.
Yeah.
Not Jesus is soon.
No, my soon, which would be like next week.
Yeah. Well, you got to specify, because a lot of people watch The Chosen and they know Jesus is soon.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, thank you very much. And hopefully, I'd like to have you on again sometime.
Love to.
And we'll kind of figure that out. But is there anything you want to add?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
I am going to text you though to get the name of the studio that you're talking about, so that I don't forget it.
No problem. I got you. Thank you guys so much, man.
Right.
What an
Thank
honor.
you.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. See you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.